Hello, and welcome to another edition of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in their communities doing beautiful things. I'm Jay. This is Roz. How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Well, Ryan, it's getting to be that time of year. It's spring, even though where I'm at,
Yeah.
you can't tell by the weather, but it is spring and summer's right around the corner, which means OVPL season is right around the corner. And I know you're a coach of an OVPL team, as we all know, but got to be exciting getting things started here. The month of May usually means like some preseason training. All those things start to come together for OVPL teams as you're getting ready for your season.
Yeah, I mean, this is a week that everybody's getting started. We're going to start on Sunday. Our squad comes in, did a whole bit about just introductions, handing out training kit, expectations, get our first good looks at the players. We've seen them in tryouts, of course, but we want to see them again, blended in with the team. And then we just start the journey. I mean, we've got about another, I think, Sunday we're coming in. And then I believe the following week, we've got our first scrimmage, first friendly, and it's over against Ambassadors, who are a team in our division of the OVPL. Very good, well-organized club. And fortunately, this is who we're going to chat with today.
Absolutely. That was a great prelude into our interview. Again, just a reminder, if you're not sure about the OVPL, it's the Ohio Valley Premier League. Check out local soccer in your area. Check out their website and support local soccer in your area. And also, Ryan, I want to mention, since our last podcast, I did have the opportunity to support some local soccer myself. Attended an Indy 11 Pittsburgh Riverhounds game at Indy 11, which was pretty cool. So shout out to both of those clubs and Indy 11. They have big plans in Indianapolis, building a stadium here in the next couple of years. And a lot of big things going on there. And it was great just to see, again, a good level of soccer in a good town, a good community. So get out there and support local soccer if you can. And also check out our website, straightfromthetrainingground.com, for all of our episodes as well as all of our merchandise, Ryan. You can get all that.
Oh, fantastic.
In case you were wondering. So with that, I knew you'd be on the edge of your seat. So with that, here's our interview with Ambassadors. And again, check them out and go out and support local soccer in your area this summer. And now we're very glad to have Ryan and Bob joining us from Ambassadors. Glad to have you with us, guys, here on our first little episode here in the spring of an OVPL preview. I know you guys are very busy, so thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. Why don't you both just quickly tell us a little bit about your role and your history with Ambassadors?
All right. Yeah. Age before beauty. So my role is the director of football operations with the men's side of the club. And the first year that we started this in 2021, I served as the head coach and really the only coach because it was a solo effort at that time. Last year, transitioned more into doing a lot more of the logistical work, the behind the scenes work, and still helping with coaching. But this year, we've been blessed by both the ministry and some people who stepped up to help us out as assistant coaches. So we've added in a volunteer assistant coach by the name of Ross Minnick. Ross was a collegiate soccer player at Hiram College when I was actually coaching on the women's side. He and his brother were both key members of our men's team at Hiram at that particular time, and then did his graduate work at Hiram, and then served as the head coach at Buena Vista University in Iowa for a few years. But he is married to one of my former Hiram players and wanted to move back into the area. They have one child and another one on the way. So Ross is hooked up with another club that has volunteered to train and coach with us because he wants to stay in touch with, obviously, the college game. That's a career aspiration. And then additionally, we've added in Matt Burgess, who is our director of boys coaching. Matt's from England, a very highly qualified coach, has worked with the club for a long time, actually was an assistant coach at Malone University for a few years. And so we're super excited to have Matt on board working with us. And then we've once again added in our goalkeeper coach, Nick Wilhelm, who's also a Malone University alum and has coached at Malone as well. But Nick now works as a contracted worker with NASA, but he'll be working with our goalkeepers as well. And then, the other way, we have a guy who's a head coach. So I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah. So my brief history with the club started back in 2015 when I joined as a player. So I've been with the club now for 8. This is kind of going into my 9th year with the team. Through 2021, like Bob said, I was on the playing side of things. Our first year of existence, when Bob was really the only coach, I was a player, and then beyond that, I played at Malone University. Similar to a lot of our guys, we're pretty closely tied in with them. So played my time through there. In the end of 2021, I blew out my knee for the second time, which sort of accelerated my retirement from playing. So I had been coaching pretty much as my profession since the end of 2019. I ended up actually working with the U19 team at Ambassadors when I was still 18 myself, which was a real blessing in and of itself. And then the injury just sort of accelerated my descent into this coaching world. And so yeah, now I serve as the head coach and the technical director for the boys side. Which is really cool. It's an amazing opportunity. So I've worked in that capacity since about January of 2022, when it became clear that my playing career was over. I started working more towards going fully into the coaching instead of playing on the men's side and coaching on the youth side. Now it's just full go coaching year round. I also served as an assistant at Malone University this past fall, which is a position that I've now had to step away from with the presence of Malone players on the team. So my main focus is with the men's senior team as well. And then I also coach an 05 group on the youth side as well. So.
No, that's great. So Ryan, just back to you. Obviously, we get the opportunity to coach against each other last season. But what a lot of people might not know is that yourself and Bob as well, but you guys run almost 2 rosters worth of teams. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that, and also how you run the OVPL as well as the NOSL team?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great point. So if you are familiar with any of our social medias and stuff, and we're pretty extensive on there, we have a roster of 5, which is considered too big for one team. The first year we started out, we were just in the NOSL. So the NOSL is it's the Northern Ohio Soccer League. It's a really great, really well run competition that we're thankful to be a part of. We actually, fortunately enough, in my last year as a player, we won the title within that league, which was great. It was an awesome opportunity. And then beyond that, there was so much interest from the player side of things. We knew we were going to have to expand. We knew about the OVPL just through some other connections. Bill Lawrence, who is the head coach up at Cleveland Force, their USL2 team. They were in the OVPL now 3 years ago. And he was really the one who kind of demonstrated to me what the OVPL was and made the suggestion that we go into it. So now the way we stand is our men's first team plays in the OVPL, and what we would call our U23 team plays in the NOSL. So that way we keep a presence in both leagues. There is limited flexibility between the 2 rosters. We pretty much register everybody in both. So that way, if a veteran guy comes in and they're not really up to scratch, they may get dropped down and have to play with the 23s for a little while, and then vice versa. We have kids as young as 06 on our men's roster this year, and if they prove themselves to be worthy of a spot within that first team, or that they're able to contribute at that high of a level, then we'll happily move them up. But it's a great balance. It works out really well, and we love having a presence in both competitions. So.
I just think that's fantastic. I'll say just sorry, Bob, just because we talk about pathways a lot. That's all buzzword. But when you're given, a high school sophomore or junior an opportunity to train the 22, 23-year-olds, and having that big group that you have, that gives them that opportunity, and it's fantastic. So I just want to say that.
Totally.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we appreciate that. We learned a lot of lessons last year as the first time that we ran through this, in that probably the most significant lesson that we learned was that we really needed to delineate 2 separate rosters. and then have a high sense of accountability for both of those rosters. And that was just a piece of feedback that actually the players gave us. They wanted to know very, very much more where they sat, where they would reside within the hierarchy of the program. And I think that's helped. We tried out over 110 players this winter for the program. So it was really, really competitive, and some very difficult decisions that were made. But yeah, we're happy to do it. And for us, it's also we put a great deal of focus on our homegrown players. I think this year we have 18 homegrown ambassadors, former youth players who are still making their way through the club at this point. So that's a really important thing, both for us and for the ministry as a whole as well.
Well, that leads me to my next question, actually, Bob. I was going to say, after your year last year in OVPL, what were some of the challenges and things you hope to improve upon this time around?
Well, and I think Ryan can speak to this as well, but it's just as we were saying, for us, it became very, very difficult to try to manage both without a true delineation between the two. And I think there's really no way of kind of couching it in a more genteel way, but there were opportunities in the closing part of the year where I'm sure we had players who, when they realized they weren't going to be playing in an OVPL level game, then they would just say, well, I'm not available this particular weekend. And it's a lesson to learn. It's a lesson to learn not only for the player, but for us on a management side. So we've increased our accountability. We've put in a number of systems to increase that accountability, but probably the most valuable thing, and I credit Ryan for doing this, was taking a look at our veteran players and forming a true leadership council. And we put those things to them as to what do you want the expectations set to be for our players, be them, like you said, a college or a high school sophomore, junior, senior who wants to play in college, or a 22 or 23-year-old who's done with their college career, but this is all that they have now. And they gave us tremendous feedback, very useful and pragmatic feedback for us to use. So I would say that's probably the most significant thing that we learned.
Yeah, the OVPL for us last year, so like he was talking about, no delineation. So our player pool was a little bit less last year. It was more in the 45 range, but there was no line between the two teams at all. So we trained as one big group in one pool, and then we kind of pulled in different directions. So if we felt there was a big game in the NOSL during a week, we would send our first team or our better team to that game, and then a reduced squad to go play in the OVPL match, or a younger team, or whatever it might be. And then there were other times where we felt like it was similar, or we were just balancing availability, so we would send an even squad to both, right? And a lot of times what that ended up with is loss on one side, loss on the other, because we weren't really committing to that first team and then reserve team type deal. Like the specific example is our last weekend of the OVPL season, we had a game against OP, who are obviously really challenging opposition, the same day as an NOSL quarterfinal, or was it a semi? It was a semifinal.
Semifinal, yeah.
Same day as an NOSL semifinal, the same day as OP. So we sent a younger squad of what would mostly be U23 players to play against OP. That was actually the second time that our younger team had played OP that season, which obviously it didn't go well for us from a result standpoint, actually in either match. So having a strict, hey, this is our first team, this is our reserve team this year, not only will it help with those kind of conflicts, but beyond that, it allows the guys to build better chemistry, because they're not worrying about how am I fitting in a 45-man roster. It's how am I fitting in this 18 to 22 that I'm with on a regular basis. So.
Hey, well, listen, I love hearing what you're saying, because you're just being really honest, because that's exactly what you go through as coaches. You start making these decisions. Am I going to just balance this? Am I balancing that? And I've done it myself too. And in this, maybe not last season, but the season before, we did a bit of that as well. Kind of similar stuff. So I'm glad you're sharing that with us. I did have a question on local rivalries. Obviously, between us, we're not that far away, but you guys have got somebody next door as well in Canton, I guess, this season. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very exciting for us. Great to see that that the Force organization and the Canton Force are taking the opportunity to participate in the league to give their players access to that level in that age group. Not exactly sure what that roster is going to be made aware of, but I'm sure they're going to be really familiar players. We're both very familiar with the coaching staff and the people within the club, not only from a geographic standpoint, but primarily because I'm an old fart and I've been around and we've all kind of grown up together. But no, it's kind of fun, and now in both leagues because we actually have a club in the NOSL, Stark County United, that's made up primarily of guys that have grown up and been around, played at Malone as well, some veteran players as well. So that's a great rivalry. And then Canton Force playing, and so I think it's just going to create a great atmosphere and a good opportunity to kind of focus and highlight that area of Northeastern Ohio as a place to, and we look at it as it's an opportunity for if be it a high school team, a younger club team to come in and say, if you really want to see what the next level looks like, then, come on out, sit on the hill, sit in the stands. You can watch 2 matches on a Saturday. We have 3 great doubleheader weekends that we have going. And so it's exciting. And I know, Ryan has played against some of these guys as well, let alone coach against them.
Yeah, I would say 2 things about local rivalries with regard to Canton. So number one is the Force now ambassadors thing going on in the OVPL is really cool, especially for some of the guys who have been with the program for a longer time, because you grow up, you play against the Cleveland Force teams, the Canton Force team. That brand of Force is really ubiquitous within Northeastern Ohio as they've sort of expanded. So there's certainly a rivalry there. I mean, I've coached 4 outdoor games so far with my 05s this year, and half of them have been against Force teams, right? And so some of those players, when they're stepping up to the higher level and they're playing with the first team, it's really, really cool to get that continuation. I mean, it's the same thing you see in any club, right? Like it's Liverpool Everton. You grow up playing in the youth academy against each other. You both make it to the first team. It's that cross city derby. It's really cool. But the other thing I would say that's really cool from just a college soccer perspective is Canton is no stranger to local rivalries. I mean, one of the coolest local rivalries in Division II is the Malone Walsh intercity derby. So Walsh is North Canton, and Malone is sort of Central Canton, and it also is a Protestant Catholic divide, which is like really cool and sort of iconic within the world of football as well. You see that.
Well, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Well, it's interesting from that perspective, because you see that across soccer. You see that in the Glasgow derby with Celtic and Rangers, and the whole Malone Walsh thing, and it being geographic. I mean, to have 2 similar Division II programs that are historic rivals that are like 8 minutes up the road from each other is so cool, and the environment for those matches is electric. And so, just in terms of Canton soccer, to breed those sort of rivalries is the foundation of like everything that football is truly about for me. So,
and the Canton Force coach Mario is of course a Walsh alum, so that makes it even more enjoyable. So, and a great friend too. So, and a wonderful coach.
Well, one last question for both of you. I'll give you like maybe 1 minute or less. In the OVPL this upcoming season, just tell everybody out there, what do you hope to accomplish with this group? What are you looking forward to? Bob, I'll start with you.
I would like to see us be more impactful and consistent, and I think that will happen through the course of what we've tried to set up internally. I think we'll be more consistent with what we're able to provide, both on the field and off the field, and then just be more impactful. I think there were times where we just were not as competitive as we probably should have been with the experience and the level of players that we had. Because there were too many dynamic forces. So I think our being a little bit more steady, a little bit more settled in and bedded into what we're trying to do, and it just makes it more exciting and more fulfilling for us to be able to know that that we should be at that level as a product. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Sure, Ryan.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. I would say that though being more competitive within the OVPL specifically is ultimately our goal. We've brought in a lot of super talented players to try and make that happen. And the big thing is just having these guys training with each other on a week in, week out basis, and focusing on them as a first team, knowing they're going to be playing in an OVPL match that weekend, and kind of having no gray area in between, help to develop not only the highest end talent that we're able to put on the field, but also just a growing chemistry and bond between those guys will help us on the pitch. So.
That's great. Well, thank you again on behalf of Ryan and I. Thanks for joining us tonight. Again, this is Ambassadors. Check them out if they're anywhere in your area over the summer in the OVPL. Check out the OVPL. And as always, check out local soccer, support local soccer in your area, wherever you might be. Again, Bob and Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ryan. It was great to be here.
Visit our new partners, UnoZero at unozero.com, where classic beauty and quality meet modern design and elegance for football boots and more. Join our official partners at Dutig Brand FC, where they create quality products to make your lives easier as coaches. Visit our partners at TractionSocks.com for performance grip socks created for all athletes.